This is the Good Neighbor Podcast, the place where local businesses and neighbors come together. Here's your host, Cabo Jim Schaller.
Welcome, good neighbors, to episode number 75 of the Good Neighbor Podcast, Estero. Today we have good neighbor Paula Bonnafant from Edge Home Finance. Paula, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I always get the good to know and get to know people in the community. So why don't we just jump right in, and could you share a little bit about what you do over at Edge?
Sure thing. So Edge is a mortgage broker based in Minnesota. I am based here in Florida. So I help, I work with Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, Virginia, and I just added Tennessee. So anybody who needs to refinance, purchase a home, anything of that, home equity, that's what I work with pretty much, just helping with their loans.
Nice. Now, how did you get into this industry?
So my mother was a real estate agent. She's retired now, but she was a top producing agent in Connecticut. And so I grew up around real estate, and there came a point where I needed to make a career change, and I did go out and I got my real estate license. But then I decided at the last minute, I just wanted to try something different. And a relative was with me and she said, well, why don't you try mortgage? She had done it for a while. And so I said, okay. So I got my license and just started working on it.
The rest is history. See, you don't have to go any house showings, any of that stuff. You got weekends free. It's nice.
Yeah, I like to travel a lot. So the real estate would cause a little bit of a trouble there.
I get it. I did the same thing. I have my real estate license, but nights and weekends is when, my schedule fills up, and it doesn't allow for that. So I do free podcasts now. So are there any myths or maybe misconceptions regarding the home finance industry that we could clear up for our listeners?
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot, but the one that I see the most often is I see clients will reach out like on social media and just randomly ask people, hey, can you recommend a good lender for me? And then a bunch of people that this person doesn't really know will recommend somebody they worked with and say, yeah, use this person, they're great. But the biggest issue with that is this is one of the largest financial decisions that they'll make in their life. And the only way to know who the right lender is to price out their scenario with probably like 5 or 6 lenders or brokers like myself, and then make a comparison and really learn how loans are priced, because they're not priced the same with every single lender. We all have different guidelines. We all offer different rates. And, and we can do different things. Like somebody who may not be able to do a loan with one company can do it with me. So a company might say to them, no, you're denied, you can't go forward, but they will not say you're denied with me, but you might be able to get approved with somebody else. So I would say that's one of the biggest issues I would see that they're facing.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of that going on today where they just jump on the first thing. And just because somebody refers doesn't always mean it's the best option for that particular person, like you had mentioned.
Right. The person might be nice, but they just may not have the best option. So
exactly. So we've all been through some type of, I want to say, challenge or hardship along our journey. Is there something that you can look back at now and say, you know what, I'm glad I went through that. I'm in a better place now?
Oh, there's so many. There's so many. There's a lot of personal, but work-wise, I would say that my biggest challenges have just been breaking into the business. For one, when I broke into this business, it was right after the big real estate crash, and I didn't have anybody to teach me. So it was just a lot of really guesswork and trying to figure things out. But making all those mistakes made me a better loan officer, because you have to make the mistakes to know how to do things right, I think. And so now, I've learned a lot from it. I've worked on a tremendous amount of files, and I have a really good handle on what can go forward and what can't.
Yeah, and it's important to notice and know both sides of that too. It's like you said, it's when you do something wrong, you're going to learn not to do it again. And, you don't know what to avoid unless you go through it. So I love that. Are you from here originally?
I'm not. I'm not. No, I grew up in Connecticut, and then I moved to New York City I lived there for probably 15 years. And then finally, and took a little trip to California and then came here. So
Wow.
moved around a little bit.
What brought you here?
Oh, I actually transferred for a job. So a recruiter came and found me in New York and convinced me to come. And I was kicking and screaming, and I canceled the day before and said, I'm not going. And then she said, well, just come for like a week or two and just see. And so finally I said, okay, I'll try it. And I haven't left.
Nice. You must love it here, like a lot of people do. It's a great area. It's growing. How has the I mean, I know the real estate market's had its up and downs recently. How's that affected you?
So, we went from the COVID time where we just, got so busy all at once. And it actually got so busy that I couldn't find processors to process my files, because all of a sudden the processors were in charge. They were pretty much saying, nope, I've got so many people begging to do my files right now. I don't have time to do yours. And they were picking and choosing. And
Wow.
so we just, it was hard to get loans closed, that there were so many of them. And then all of a sudden, after all of that kind of died down a bit, then the market just slowed down and the business slowed down when the rates started hiking up. And now it's really starting to turn around again. Like today has just been nonstop for me. So it's a good thing that it's coming back.
Now you've partnered with a number of people. Real estate's big down here. So many people want to move to Florida right now. So,
Yes.
it must be a good market. And it's interesting that you're on the side of the business that you are. And I love it. Is there maybe something that our listeners should know about if they're looking to look into financing that maybe they don't, or they should prepare for?
Yeah, there's quite a bit. And so there's so many products out right now. It's no longer just your traditional FHA and conventional products. We have all sorts of non-QM products. So a lot of clients will guess ahead of time that they're not going to qualify. And so they won't try. But there's just so many, like we can go down right now to, 500 in credit scores.
Wow.
Where a lot of people think, oh, my credit score is under 600, I can't get qualified. Well, they definitely can. So we can go down in the 500s. And I believe on VA loans, we can even go lower than that on some circumstances. And so that's one thing. There's options for down payment assistance. So a lot of clients don't realize, and for first-time home buyers, they don't realize, they think that down payment is all they need to close. But you actually need down payment, your closing costs, and your escrows a lot of times. And so often I see that clients aren't prepared. So what I would say is don't wait until you're ready to buy to get pre-approved. I would say definitely start working with a loan officer far before that, like maybe 2 or 3 months before that. So we can look at all your information and advise you. That's what we get paid for. We get paid to actually prepare clients to qualify. And
Right.
So it's
Don't
really
wait to the last minute, right?
Yeah. And the other thing I see is a lot of clients try to do self-help on their credit, and they end up paying off items that we don't need them to pay. And that money could go towards their closing costs instead. And so I'll see like clients will be paying down all their debt, all their credit cards and things like that. And they'll pay off their medical, and I'll be like, they don't need to necessarily do that. We'll choose which items they need to pay if they need to pay anything.
Interesting. So I know, like you had mentioned, there's so many different programs out there, for veterans, first responders. I know there's some special programs out there for that. But as far as, individuals that may not have the best credit, or maybe they're a first-time home buyer. And first-time home buyer doesn't necessarily mean it's the first time they bought a house, correct?
Correct. It just means that you haven't owned a house in the past 3 years.
Okay. And that's a big difference, because people are like, well, I bought a house already and I haven't lived in one for 10 years now. I can't do that. But you can. So it's about the education. So you live down here, you have your dog. What do you like to do on your time off?
So, I just kind of made a change a little bit. I was traveling all the time. Like I would travel somewhere every single weekend. And I love photography. So I would go take pictures. And then the other thing I do is a glass artist. So I make marbles. But just recently, I stopped traveling so much, trying to just cut back a little bit and, stay home. And I just started making little doll heads instead of marbles. So I have a fashion background. So I'm sewing little dolls and putting glass heads on them.
You've got the creativeness going. So you got to go with it. You got to go with the flow.
Yeah. I run a little Etsy shop for it just for fun. But It just gives me something to be passionate about, on the
Absolutely. And it helps you enjoy your regular job a little bit more.
Sure does.
So are there any last things that maybe our listeners should know that they don't know about home financing?
I'm not sure. I mean, there's a lot of things, but it's really scenario based. Like everybody's situation is different. And a lot of people will call me and just say, what's the rate today? And that's just not the best approach. The best approach is to call a loan officer and say, this is what I can afford for a monthly payment. What kind of loan can I get into for that? And then to just be really honest and upfront about any situations that they may be facing. Like, for example, if their credit is negative for some reason, just tell the loan officer exactly why. Don't try to hide anything because, a lot of people tend to say, well, maybe if I say that, I won't be qualified. It's the opposite. If you tell us everything, we know how to work around it and really structure your file better.
It's the surprises that get you, right? When
it
they don't
really
tell you.
Is. Yeah, because you can get almost to closing and all of a sudden the underwriter will discover something that wasn't disclosed and it can just totally unravel your deal. So it's better we know.
Good advice. So how would our listeners go about getting hold of you if they're looking into finance?
Yeah, so I have a website, paulashomeloans.com. And so that's usually the best way, or to call me, of course, at 239-689-1331. And I also have email info@paulashomeloans.com.
Very good. Paula, thank you for being a good neighbor. It's been a pleasure getting to know you, and I hope to see you out in the community soon.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yep.
Thank you for listening to the Good Neighbor Podcast Estero. To nominate your favorite local businesses to be featured on the show, go to gnpestero.com. That's gnpestero.com. Or call 239-296-2621.